cosplay world, back with the third part in the 6-part series of Glauca's armor set. This is the villain from Final Fantasy 15, but if you're in this video and this is the first time you're watching, I suggest you go back or go to finalcosplaycore.com and subscribe and support us and help us make this awesome content because it's a cool build. And this time around we're going to be making the helmet. The base of the helmet is going to be PVC foam sheeting. Mostly because the rest of the armor is PVC foam sheeting, and I'm working with that, and it just makes it more consistent if like you make a build largely the same material. This isn't always the case. One thing I've been considering is using resin casting for the helmets, and this is because sizing in helmets is a thing. If your helmet is too fat or thick in material, it looks kind of like a bobblehead, and I really want to discourage this because that's something I feel like is a thing with my work, is that the helmets are just a little too big. They're half an inch on each side, just a little too big. And if I can get that shrunk down, then it would look more proportional, look a lot nicer and more even, and I would be super happy with that. Also because I kind of want to play with that different like manufacturing or creation kind of testing thing. But with this, it's not going to be a huge deal because most of the helmet is one layer, and that's 1/8 of an inch thick. The thicker layers do get to be, I don't know, 9 they get to be about 9 millimeters, and that's around the side of the face where there's more detail, and that's less of a critical issue because it's more of a wedge shape in this case. I start with the back of the head and make sure that shape, because the back of the head is going to be this domed piece of plastic, and working with PVC is a little bit more difficult than working with EVA foam and Worbula, and those dome shapes are more difficult to get out of materials because it has a higher melting temperature, has a little less stretch in 3 dimensions, and so this isn't going to be the easiest starting piece for someone who's not worked with plastics before. As you can see, I'm like actually wrestling with it. What I like to do is kind of like stretch it over my knee when I'm doing these shapes. There's a few tutorials where I do this, and I'll show you. So we're going to glue these together with the special plastic glue, the Weld-On 2007. I'm pretty sure you've heard that a few times before if you watch my videos. And we're going to be layering on the front piece. Now what I did was, first I made sure the front piece fit, or sorry, the back piece fit, and then I sort of sized the back piece and cut away the extra. I want to cut away the extra because, again, I want that extra space to make sure that it doesn't kind of, it isn't too close to my face. We're going to be putting some LEDs in there, and also I'm going to need to see out of this thing. LEDs are going to be placed on the inside, lining the inside, and they're going to be wired to a battery pack in the chest, and that's we just kind of have connections, and that's it. One central battery pack is enough to get the whole job done. And then once we have the kind of face and back sized right, I glue them together, and then we add the top piece on this in this case because it's kind of like this one big plate. And you can see I was cleaning it up and refining it and making it look even and smooth. I kind of got a bigger piece than necessary and cleaned it up here. One thing that I do recommend is to make sure that when you're working with rigid material such as this plastic for helmets, that you make sure you have space for padding. One thing that sucks is having a rigid material scraping and smashing up into your ears. Just a little bit of padding will make the experience so much more pleasurable. And not suck nearly as like you don't want to scratch your ears up because there's like a sharp piece of plastic rubbing against it constantly as you're moving around. Now the eyes on this helmet are very small, very limited view. So one thing I was checking periodically is make sure I can get in and out of it very easily, and that is the case because I sure am not going to be able to wander around very much with the helmet down. I have a very limited view. And when I go on stage, the stage lights are going to hit the acrylic. I have a little plastic sheets that I'm going to hit with a transparent pink spray paint. I got this at actually Joanne has a good selection of transparent spray paints, which is not particularly common in like your local home improvement store. They don't carry that kind of stuff a lot. But for crafting, that's totally a thing. That's why, Joanne or Hobby Lobby or Michael's is probably a better bet for those specific kind of spray paints. At any rate, when the stage lights hit the acrylic with the spray paint on it, it is going to 100% go white. It's going to blind you completely, and you won't be able to see. Also, we have tints. Tints are also options when you're making visors and things like that. And I actually have a pink tint. Or I'm getting distracted. So here I am. Now, most of the face is going to be, or the upper half of the face is going to be rigid plastic, so I can mount all the electronics, but the lower half is going to be EVA foam, so it can be more flexible. This is going to be, one, more comfortable, but two, also flexible enough for me to get in and out of regularly. I'm going to be having this little like flap at the bottom, and that's going to be tucked into my armor and allow me to get in and out of it and like sort of stack the layers, the various details in place when I work with it. Additionally, a lot of the details on the armor are, I'm going to say 1 or 2 millimeters thick, and so they don't need to be structurally stiff, and just layering and hot gluing down the EVA foam is totally fine. Now, typically I'm not super happy with using hot glue, but hot glue works very well when gluing EVA foam together because of the porous surface, and it's not going to be under any kind of structural load. Additionally, we're going to be coating the entire surface of the armor in DAP or silicone caulk, and that's just going to be a layer of goop that protects the whole surface. This armor is incredibly durable. Let me tell you, it's got the plastic base for structure, it's got the EVA foam for cushioning, and then it's got a layer of basically bounce, like the cushioning of the silicone against basically any kind of con damage. Silicone caulk is very resilient, so once we got that spray painted down, it can just run into shit constantly and it won't be any problem. Worst case scenario is you hit it with more of the hammered metal. I think it's gunmetal, the hammered gunmetal. And most of the piece is actually just the one texture of hammered gunmetal, except for the glowy bits and a few details. So it's an incredibly durable armor overall. So yeah, you see I'm making the chin section here, and we've got the various details to it as well. So yeah, we can now kind of like tuck that chin area underneath some of the chest, various flanges and curls that are all over the piece here. So PVC, you need to sand the surface in order to the glue to work especially well. So make sure you do that. This is also true for when you're painting it. So just generally sand the surface of PVC sheeting so it takes better paint and adheres and things like that. You see a marked swirl around the edge of the ear. We're going to come in and with a soldering iron and / hot knife / wood engraver, wood burnering tool, and we're going to add a few details. When we add the silicone caulk, it's going to create this texture when we have to put a glove on for this case. But to aid in that, we're adding these layers and we're engraving these details, so we don't have to use quite as much silicone caulk. Also, silicone caulk isn't exactly the most precise material to work with, so any kind of lines or decorative bits that are very particular, we want to get those done in the base material rather than trying to draw this out in caulk and goop and hope it dries correctly and everything. The ears are also going to have a wood burned detail in the back of it. This is mostly to thin that section to allow us to heat shape it correctly. This is a trick I use for like swords, and this allows you to create a seam or an edge without actually gluing two pieces together, especially when you have a complex curve like this. Gluing complex curves together is a pain in the butt, so it's definitely way easier to kind of just make a thin section of the material you're working with and heat shape it and bend it along that crease that you created. This is where you probably want a ventilation or a mask because the burning plastic is not good. Actually burning any of these materials, generally not good. But in the next video, we're going to be doing some sewing, so I hope you guys check that out. Thanks for watching. Good times to all. If you like this, you should check out finalcosmiccore.com. There's lots of pretty cool stuff over there. See you guys next time. Good times to all.